Hey guys, Joey here, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to take your breakdown from this to this using sound design. If you've seen my last video featuring Post-Production Kaoss, then you're already familiar with some of the concepts in this video. But now we're going to take it even farther. If you're not already familiar, sound design simply means creating your own sounds from scratch, or in our case, to combine some different samples together to make something more cinematic and epic. And in this mix, I'm going to be using ambience and impacts to give this breakdown way more weight. The first thing that we got to do is listen to our track and find the key moments that could use something extra. Right away, I can hear that this downbeat could be way harder. And the first snare hit after this is another important moment that we can highlight. I'm also hearing that there could be a little more build up to the breakdown. Let's start at the beginning. Ambience is great for building tension before and throughout a breakdown. Let's introduce some ambience before we even get into the heavy stuff. I'm going to start the sample right from the beginning of this section. That adds a lot of air and tension. We can make this even more effective by fading in the sample so that the listener feels it building. Not only does this add a little tension before the downbeat, but check out these gaps here. You can see how it's filling them in with something cool. Okay, great. We've got a little tension, and we fleshed out our moments of silence. Now, let's work on those impacts. The first drop we're going to work on is the downbeat of this breakdown, and we want to make sure that this feels huge after all that buildup. Let's start with an explosion or a slam, which really just means a sound that has a really loud transient and a long decay. And make sure that the transient of the sample aligns with the downbeat of the breakdown. That's a great start. Make sure these slams and drops are balanced, or else it's going to make our drums and guitar actually feel smaller by comparison. That's better. I'm probably going to do this with every sample that we add, so I'll just say it once again. Make sure your post-production impacts are supporting your mix elements, not replacing them. Alright, now let's layer in another slam under that one to get a broader frequency hit. And for the second slam, let's use an actual explosion. I'm going to put a gunshot sample on this downbeat to fill in some of the higher frequencies here. I'm loving how the first slam takes care of the transient and the gunshot effect fills in the rest. That's pretty heavy. We can add in a few different types of slams to fill this out even more. Just be careful so that there's not too much going on, or it's going to mess up the primary mix elements during these parts. Now let's move on to the next section. I want to give extra weight to this first snare hit. We're going to do this in a few ways. First, let's just add a slam on that beat. Most slams are just percussive ambience, but it could be cool to add a pitched hit to fill out not only the impact, but also the melodic content of a part. I don't want to overdo this since we just had a massive downbeat, so let's leave it at 1 drop right here. Now that we've got the hit dialed in, let's add a little bit of tension leading up to it. I'm going to use a few whooshes for this. A whoosh is a sound that has a short build and a less percussive transient followed by a long tail. We want to make sure that the peak of this sample hits with the snare, so let's find it and then align it with the beat. Sweet, now we can hear a buildup and a payoff on top of our existing slam. To really drive this effect home, let's add a couple fades to exaggerate how it comes in and then goes out. Nice, that's not only cleaner but also a little more dramatic. I'm going to toss another sample on that snare with a slightly different texture. I like how explosive this slam is, while still having a little bit of a lead in. Just for fun, let's add one more whoosh on top. What I love about these two sections is how the samples form a new rhythm that really enforces our most important beats in this breakdown. Since the beginning of this breakdown is hitting hard with all these samples, I want to make sure the rest of it doesn't feel too weak, so let's go to the second snare hit. I don't want to layer too many samples here since the whole goal is to keep this breakdown dynamic, and if every single hit is huge, it kind of defeats the purpose. That being said, I don't want this to feel weak either, so let's drop a sample or two here for reinforcement. This sample fits really well to me because it almost sounds like a real drum that's just overhyped instead of something that's totally artificial. And to me, that makes this feel a little bit more natural while still having that emphasis that we're looking for. Let's tuck one more sample under the snare hit for a little more size. This sounds really cool, but it stands out too much compared to the last sample, so we're going to dial the volume back. Awesome, that really fills out the hit without taking away from the main beats before it. Now that the beats are all laid out and accented, there's just one section left to touch up. With all the size these samples created, we need to make sure that the end hits hard too. I'm going to throw a few extra samples on that last snare hit to make sure that this track finishes strong. Let's start with a snare bomb. This super compressed snare has a ton of body that'll make it sound like the drummer hit really hard on that last note. Find the transient and align it with the last snare hit. Since I'm really just adding body to the snare, let's fade in over the transient to keep things clean. This all sounds cool, but it's missing a little bit of low frequency excitement. So let's use a couple samples with a deeper tone to get this last beat feeling super full and final. That'll definitely work. One of the coolest parts of post-production is that you can not only make your existing parts feel bigger, but you can also make them live in their own unique spaces. Let's go back over all these hits so you can hear how our samples have improved the impact and vibe. post-production samples transformed this breakdown from something average into something totally epic, with a ton of motion, really easily, and I didn't even have to load a plugin or do any crazy automation to get these great results. I hope this video really got you to think about how important motion and impact is to a modern breakdown, and how far a little bit of attention to detail can go. Do you use post-production samples in your music? If so, what are some of your favorite sounds? And if not, which sound from this video would you most likely use in your mixes? Let me know in the comment section below. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to check out our first ever post-production sample pack by JST. It's called Kaoss Volume 1, and it features over 100 different samples separated into 7 different categories, with many of the samples synchronized to BPM and key for added ease of use. If you're tired of wasting time searching the internet for lackluster samples or trying to make your own, this pack has everything you need. Check it out, joysturgistones.com. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to tap that bell to get notified when we upload new videos. That's all for this one. Until next time, happy mixing.